Salutations, Utopians. Hope all is well in your world. Global here. Forgive me for not having my draft video out sooner. However, this just allows me to consolidate the 2 days into one video. The 2025 draft has concluded. Literally, this is like a holiday to me. This is the motivation, my inspiration for why I thought about starting a sports brand. And here we are. Reflecting on one of the greatest times of the year. Um, there was about 7 teams who had almost half the amount of picks that in the first round. Now there was, I'm pretty sure, a record number of trades. To me, that was a huge buzzkill. It was just way too many trades. I didn't enjoy that part. It was very unenjoyable. Give me 1 second. Let me turn off this game real quick. Just finishing up the Las Vegas Aces versus the Washington Mystics. Great young team the Mystics have. Big time victory. Hope they make, speaking of transactions, hopefully the Aces get some help for Asia Wilson. She needs to be surrounded with some more talent. These are the kind of seasons that tax the body in dog years. With that being said, the draft didn't, the first pick was of no surprise. Dallas Mavericks, after everything they've been through, drafted Cooper Flagg with the first overall pick. Second, Dylan Harper was much anticipated, pairing him with Stephon Castle. Well, actually, let me say this. Let me go back. Cooper Flagg, I had him in my mock draft as a prime Chandler Parsons. That is no kind of disrespect. I understand people are saying he's a great defender and, generational talent. Some have gone as far as to make LeBron comparisons. I do think that people use the draft as a pay-per-view opportunity. One thing I don't like, though, is that when these players do not materialize exactly to a T to what the so-called masses had expected, so-called pundits, excuse me, it becomes very sobering. And so I like to channel expectations first and foremost. I think it's necessary that when people make assessments of a player's talent, viewing them and then looking at the opportunity that they're in has a lot of bearing on how great they can possibly be. To call, Cooper Flagg, LeBron, or anything of that nature when he's sharing the court with Anthony Davis, a prime first ballot Hall of Fame candidate, Kyrie Irving, who's a top 75 type talent, even though he didn't make the list, it's going to be very hard for him to be able to claim that kind of title. He's a very well-rounded young man. That's why I say he reminds me a lot of Chandler Parsons. Chandler Parsons had a phenomenal career, just got a little bit too party animal about it. Ironically, one of his last stops was with the Mavericks. And so after an unbelievable magical run with James Harden in Houston. So respect to him. Spurs going and getting Dylan Harper. He kind of reminds me of a left-hand version of Stephon Castle. Can do a little bit of everything. You can expect a 25-5 type performance from him. Rather larger guard. His dad was his pops was the point guard on the Bulls team with Michael Jordan that won many rings. So the lineage is there. He understands how to play the game. Proper temperament for that San Antonio environment. I personally was kind of hoping this offseason we would hear De'Aaron Fox move out the way so they can start him right away. It might not be this season, but maybe just roll him out until he learns the game, and then maybe Fox leaves after this year. But that's going to be a dynamic backcourt if everything goes according to plan. I really like that for San Antonio. Rutgers had one of the more disappointing seasons last year. I don't know what happened, but they didn't even make the tournament or any subsidiary tournament for that matter, playoff system type of environment. But good luck to them. Whoa, so then we get to the Philadelphia 76ers, and that's where it got very interesting. Baylor's VJ Edgecombe from the Bahamas, explosive, dynamic two-guard, little on the undersized side of things at 6'4", but very explosive, can shoot from the three ball, so he's a three-level scorer. My biggest concern with him is going to be consistency, and what further backs that is how crowded the backcourt is in Philadelphia and how limited the opportunities are. A lot of people don't want to say this, but I remember Jared McCain off to a Rookie of the Year type of campaign Then Paul George returns, and he looked like a shadow of himself, and it was almost like a blessing that he got injured. But every person under that Nick Nurse system last year in Philly thrived, who they signed off to the streets, whether it be uh, whether it be Hood Shafino, whether it be what's that gentleman's name? He played high school in Philly. I see his face. He was a former Laker. Uh, but obviously Tyrese Maxey did his thing. Um, he's a former San Antonio Spur. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now, but uh, and then not to mention Quentin Grimes emerged. He had even a 50-ball performance. Lonnie Walker's who I'm trying to think of. He stepped in, had a great game. Just anyone you put at point guard or two guard over there seemed to have thrived last year. So the problem is who's going to come back. Lonnie's definitely returning. Hood Shafino should be on the summer league team, but where's the chances are going to come from with respect to the Philadelphia 76ers? Not to mention Paul George, I'm sure will be running some point forward. So VJ won't be in a rush to be great, but at the same time it's kind of tricky. Joel being from Cameroon, VJ being from the Bahamas, I'm sure that will help with some initiating himself into getting the understanding of NBA culture and being on the road. So that's good. All in all, I felt like the Sixers made a pick just to make a pick. They should have traded out of that and reserved it for next year when they would have had a better understanding of what they have in their personnel. Me personally, I believe they need to blow that entire team up. But of all the years to have a top pick, and you got so many players that deserve priority right now, it's just crazy. I probably would have went something like a Derek Queen or Asa Newell, but even a Danny Wolf at the 4. I would have tried to find a power forward or someone as a backup center, even though I do like Boma a lot from UCLA, who they drafted last year in the second round, and he plays a very above the rim protecting type of big. So a 4 would have been more appropriate to me, but they went with 2-guard Vince Edgecombe, feeling like he's too good to be true. My NBA comp for him is Jalen Green. Moving to the 4th pick, Con Canoople. Canoople reminds me, if you remember a lot at the trade deadline, the Los Angeles Lakers had made a trade for Mark Williams, 2 first-round picks, and Dalton Connect, who I'm a huge fan of. Well, obviously that trade got rescinded. Con Canoople kind of reminds me of that physical, polished, 3-level scores that reminds me of Dalton. He's a couple inches shorter in height. However, very polished, very mature game. He's the kind of guy who I compare him more to Bogdan, but they were determined to get a guy who's very polished and mature, and they found him in Duke's Con Canoople, making a second out of two players out of the top 4 from Duke getting drafted. 5th pick. Now the Utah Jazz were on the bubble. That's a team with a loaded depth. Keontae George, Isaiah Collier, Colin Sexton, Jordan Crawford. Then you got, the small forward over there, who I'm a huge fan of from Colorado, Jalen Williams' brother. They got Filipowski, they got Markkanen, they got Collins, Walker Kessler. They have so much depth. I'm sure they're going to start, shedding some of that weight. But this was the one place, and I was telling everyone, I already devoted an entire video to Ace Bailey. They already screwed up with respect to, the people were saying that he screwed up not doing interviews, but he did exactly what he should. It's already bad enough that he probably was going to go first overall if Cooper Flagg wasn't in the draft. And so to make sure that he wasn't standing in anyone's shadow, he purposely tried to make it be clear that he cares more about the team that he goes to an opportunity than he does a spot. And then he ends up in Utah where they're loaded. There's not a lot of threes over there. A lot of speculation can be put to bed about AJ DiBeneste, even though nothing is completely ruled out in the NBA based on what we're seeing now. But Ace Bailey reminds me of like Rudy Gay, DeMar DeRozan. I don't see why in Utah they're not going to start him as a day one. That would be my first red flag. Nobody's really at small forward for him, though, so he's definitely already better than Williams from Colorado. But He's just a little more explosive, like a lot more explosive. Williams is a very talented, cerebral scorer, but he's kind of a step slow. Ace is a very explosive. He's the entire package. Do I think? Let's just say that he could be a perennial all-star. What we have on hand, so it could be a great thing for him there. Who knows? Number 6, the Washington Wizards were on the clock. They took Trey Johnson. It's funny because in my mock draft that I had did online, I had compared him to Nick Young, former Wizard. He's a streaky guy. He's a catch and shoot, not afraid to let it fly. Has displayed some main option characteristics. So for the Wizards, they already got. They just moved off Jordan Poole, but with Bub Carrington, Keontae George, I'm forgetting George from Miami. He kind of has like a mellow type of scoring game. I see them possibly moving Carrington to primary and then having Trey possibly be a 2. He can dance between the 2 and the 3 though, so that's good news for them. I'm forgetting the young man's name. He's a 6'9" hybrid small forward. I think they're going to line him up at the 4, and then obviously Alex Sarr is the franchise. So he's not necessarily having to fight through too much of a depth chart, a crowded depth chart to get minutes. He could be an instant impact kind of guy, but I expect inconsistencies from him. He's already a jump shooter, and then also, there's a lot of talent, a lot of ball that needs to go around over there with the Wizards. At number 7, the Pelicans ironically drafted a guy who kind of reminds me of Gennaro Pargo / modern day reference Trey Mann, and Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. He plays exactly like his name is. Fearless scorer, loves to get the buckets in bunches. I wonder what this will spell for their backup, Alvarado. There's only so many minutes to go around, but this was an interesting pick for them, getting another scorer, knowing they got DeJounte Murray. Maybe Murray is not ready to come back immediately, so they are in the event that it might not work out right away. They're trying to have some options there, because last year it went as far as having to sign Elfrid Payton off the street, so it could be interesting with that. It fills a need. There seems to be opportunity, long story short. Number 8 is Brooklyn Nets. They go with Igor Demon. He played for BYU, where A.J. DePinay stayed number 1 projected overall pick. Can't miss prospect is now. I don't think he's polished. I think originally he acknowledged that he was going to transfer to Illinois, and then he stayed in the draft. Must have got a verbal commitment from Brooklyn. He's kind of a point forward guy. If you ever had the privilege to watch Mike Miller at Florida, that's kind of who he reminds me of. He's not as good of a shooter as Mike was straight into the league, but that point forward skill set, creative with the ball, up-tempo kind of guy. Knowing Brooklyn was one of teams in the last place in that category, it really pushed him into the forefront of priorities. They have a free-flowing offense. Their coach, Rudy, wants to make everything. Coach Fernandez, I believe his last name, wants to create that type of international, high up-tempo, Mike D'Antoni system, and he's the kind of guy you can do that with. Literally, Brooklyn could draft anyone. They had an open slate last year, literally picking players up off the street. So if there's anywhere for this raw prospect to go, that was the franchise for him. Number 9 was an interesting one. Colin Murray Boyles. A lot of idiots out there were saying that he was dropping the F-bomb because he didn't want to go there. I think for him it was more of a gasp, a breath of fresh air, like, wow, it's finally over. And going to the Raptors where they have Scotty Barnes, that was a little bit of a questionable pick. I think Maluach from Duke would have been the more appropriate pick. Yes, Jake Potel emerged on the scene last year post-trade deadline from San Antonio, but they could have always used another depth piece at center, a particular stretch big. This guy's a utility guy. Think like I had him compared to Patrick Williams, but he fits that mold of like rugged 4-man off the bench, multi-position defender, can shoot the 3, can shoot the mid-range. Not necessarily the most creative off dribble, but think of him a little bit more smaller but more athletic Scotty Barnes out there, to a lesser degree, obviously, not to the same extreme. Then Houston right after, which ended up being a trade that goes to Charlotte. Malawach getting drafted at 10, which was originally a Houston pick. Malawach is a 7-2 guy. I had him compared to uh, DeAndre Ayton, who originally the Rockets pick was supposed to go to the Suns. So ironically, me comparing him to Ayton, and he went to the Suns. They ended up sending him to subsequently to the Hornets. Hornets make another trade. They already got Nick Richardson for Nurkic at the trade deadline. They went and got Mark Williams for Malawach also. So that was very interesting. Now Phoenix has two bigs. I do think Williams is better than Richards, but Richards definitely showed some promise. Remember, they also got who emerged on the scene. Um, so that was interesting. Concanupal and Malawach, which kind of matches the Mark Williams Connect trade. Interesting enough. Number 11 was Portland with Cedric Coward. Ironically, Coward, who I compared to Anthony Morrow and projected as the Grizzlies as being one of the best teams for him. Morrow has a 7'1" wingspan, and he's a sharpshooter. Injured his shoulder, so there wasn't a lot of tape on him, but he is a pure sharp. If you remember Anthony Morrow, he's one of the best shooters of all time, even though his career did not reflect the level of importance, level of talent he was at one point placed in OKC with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, and a last-ditch effort to help them try to create a championship, but it ultimately came up short. Solid pick for the Grizzlies. Esengu from Florida. The big story from France. The big story, he left a tournament, I believe in Germany, to come to the States to be present for himself getting drafted. He joins Matas Buselli, who's the franchise primary priority is the word I'm looking for. He's a very raw guy. His ceiling could be a Giannis, Pascal Siakam type. However, right now I would more pattern him after Darius Miles. Run jump guy, 9'1" wingspan, decent handle, plays extremely fast, high energy. High energy character trait is amazing for an NBA prospect, just simply because good things happen to those who are active, and so that's where he could get immediately involved in the league and carve out an identity. Chicago is a team that doesn't seem to prioritize winning these last lately, even though they have a bevy of talent over there, so there will be no pressure for him. Very exciting pick. Patrick Williams, I hear, might be on the move, so speaking of Boyles, I was mentioning earlier, but as saying, he's a a run jump athlete, crazy vertical, 9'1" wingspan, just crazy prospect, freak athlete. The sky's the limit with him, and he's in an environment where no one's going to pressure him to perform. Him and Buselli's length and athleticism is just an absolute nightmare if it does pan out. The Bulls drafted an absolute project in him, though. Derek Queen was drafted 13th. He ended up with the Pelicans. He's got a deal with Dairy Queen. Now he's playing in the Smoothie Arena, ironically. But more importantly, all jokes aside, even though that is a true fact, this was Joe Dumars' bold move. It was a lot given up to get him. He's a 3-level scorer. Maryland's coach said he probably would have been a top 5 pick if he was a Euro player. That's out the mouth of Maryland's head coach. He's a fiery player. I compared him to Julius Randle, who also at one time was with Chris Finch in New Orleans. So that was a great pickup for him. For them, that's an insurance policy, I would think, if Zion, for whatever reason, gets injured again. Also, remember, they still have, I see his face right now, but they still have their their big man over there from last year who played extremely well. I can't remember his name. I think he's from Cameroon, but he can shoot the 3, block shots, rebound. Definitely played very good last year. High energy, stays engaged. So they have a nice trio of bigs over there no matter what. The Pelicans have had their seasons cut short due to injuries, but every time Zion's been healthy, they've competed for the first seed in the league. The trade they made to get Derek Queen insinuates that they believe they'll be a top 5 team in the West if Zion stays healthy. I think Zion is as good as any player in the NBA, so no arguments from me. 14th pick, Carter Bryant. This is my Miles Turner type acquisition right here, speaking of Texas and San Antonio. I think this guy, Carter Bryant, was first and foremost, he went to Arizona, and he fit. I know exactly what whoever recruited him was thinking. Like, he's gonna fall in that lineage of uh, players like Richard Jefferson and Richard Jefferson, Andre Iguodala, those Arizona swingmen who are going to play outstanding three-level freak athletes. He's already physique-wise ready to go. He averaged 6.5 points in college, so call it 6. But some players just do not play as good in the college as they do in the pros. Some make better pros than college players. Him going to San Antonio is only going to strengthen that suspicion of mine for him. The problem is they do have, quite a few players over there already. Swings and Vassell. Obviously, there's going to be some time spent with Castle at the 2. Harrison Barnes is there. That's a guy who you could also say that Carter will remind you of. I have him comped as Otto Porter Jr. I'm thinking of McDaniel too, the guy who gave Chris Paul his 2. He plays exactly like him. I got him comped as Otto Porter just to be safe. I don't like to oversell on prospects, especially when they haven't, they got a lot of room for showing. And so I don't want to, give him any time. But he could, and Otto Porter's respectable. He got himself a $100 million contract one time in the league. So let's take care of that. The Thunder drafted Georgetown big man at 15, Thomas Sorber. Sorber reminds me a lot of Greg Monroe. He went to Georgetown like Monroe. Good touch around the rim, has some post moves. He's explosive, but he kind of takes a second for him to gather himself, which that's not who Monroe is. But from just a pure standpoint of he's comfortable in the post, he gets to his place, he finds the move he wants, nobody rushes him, and he is deceptively athletic. He's like an Orlando Brown guy, a guy who on Miami's summer league team always thrives. I don't know how far he'll go. This tells me that Jalen Williams might be on the move. They're 6'10", 270-pound big man who's only 23 years of age and can shoot the 3 from 40. The Thunder might be getting ready to preparing themselves to lose Williams this offseason. The center, not the 2 guard. At 16, Yang Hansan was traded a couple times. The Grizzlies had the pick. They ended up trading for Hansan off Portland, who drafted him. He was originally Hansan is the second highest drafted player from China since Yao Ming. And so he and Portland is good for this. They drafted the first ever Korean player back in the day, Hang Sang-jin, who was 7 feet 305, 7'2", 305. And so, but they're gonna pair him. Remember, the Grizzlies got point guard Yoko, who's a social media sensation and loved in Japan. This is an interesting pickup. Remember, Zach Edey's out early, so this could be a guy who kind of like helps fill in the blanks for them in the meantime, between time. At 17, French big man Behringer. He reminds me of Willie Cauley-Stein, Mitchell Robinson, very athletic, can guard anywhere on the court as a 7-footer. He's going to have a great mentor in Rudy Gobert to teach him how to be a big in the NBA. He's from France, like I said, very raw player, but he ends up really knowing his role out there. He could become a generational defender. This guy is super athletic, can guard point guards like a guard does. That's his greatest standout, very raw athletically. 18, the Wizards drafted Walter Clayton, national champion. Walter has drawn comparisons to Jamal Murray. I don't see where he can do that. He ended up getting traded to the Jazz. The Jazz have a crowded backcourt, as I mentioned earlier, and Collier and Sexton just at the bare minimum, not to mention Keontae George could get some minutes there. So I don't really like how that pick for the Jazz. And I don't like that fit for Clayton. I do think he reminds me a lot of Lester Quinones, infinite bag, can score on all 3 levels, is not shy to let it fly, but it's going to be hard for him to carve out on his identity, especially since the league is going towards more natural point guards, and he's a combo guard. The league is starting to move away from that. Don't be surprised if you see a couple of these combo guards fizzle out of the league, even Fears, because they play a particular brand of ball that's no longer, that the league is moving away from. Nolan Traore reminds me, went to Brooklyn. They have an affinity for these French point guards. He reminds me of Killian Hayes. Uh, we'll see how it plays out. Brooklyn did need a point guard. A lot of point guards thrived over there, whether it was D'Angelo Russell last year, whether it was Dennis Schroeder. There was guys who would fill in the blank for them and just step up and have big games. Point guards under their current coach's system thrive. Wouldn't be surprised if he carves out a respectable season for himself. Kaspas Jares Jesgunius, he's a player for Miami at 20, drafted Kaspas. He reminds me of Bob Sura. He's like a left-handed, three-level scorer. He passes the ball. This is exactly what Miami's been needing. They got Mitchell over there, and they got Terry Rozier, but they needed another guard who can play the game correctly as a point guard, and now they got that. Those guys that I mentioned just now are combo guards. This is what Miami needed, was a point guard. All these rumors about Andrew Wiggins and Kevin Durant and all this, they don't have any problems. They need to play their personnel correctly. Start Ware, start Bam. Jaime Jasquez needs to get minutes. They need a point guard. They got one possibly with this guy. They got the talent. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. They got everything they need. They just need to play their team, their roster, and they'll be just fine. This was a great pick for them, mark my words. I really like it. 21, the Jazz drafted Will Riley. I think he got relocated. 22, Powell got relocated. Asa Newell went to the Hawks eventually. Head scratcher. Asa reminds me of Derrick Jones Jr. A Derrick Jones Jr., Obi Toppin type of guy, high leaper, light in the back pocket, but can score all the way out to the three-point line. High energy guy, great athlete, great leaper. So I just don't like the fact that Johnson's already there, even though he's injured. So like this feels like Collins Johnson all over again. This feels like the John Collins, James Johnson, all administration all over again. Even though Johnson is questionably to be injured, they got so much depth over there with the Porzingis acquisition. Ochi, they also got Chewy over there. So it's just too many. It's a lot to sort through. They're just loading up on a lot of players. I still think Landry Fields is better than what they got right now. Nick Clifford got drafted from Colorado State. He drew comparisons to Doug Christie one time, Sacramento King, ironically, on some mock drafts. I called him Jordan Clarkson. He was the guy I had the most difficulty trying to find the perfect comp. I was going to call him Keon Ellis, ironically, and then he goes to Sacramento. So I don't know. Maybe Devin Carter, Nick Clifford, and Keon Ellis with Malik Monk. That will be the rotation. It's a little competitive. I've definitely seen him starting off with Stockton, the G League team for them, before it's all said and done. There was a great feel-good story. J.C. Richardson going to the Magic. His dad, Jason Richardson, who he attended Michigan State like his dad, and he'll be playing for the Magic like his dad, who did so for 10 years. I think he was even in the finals with Dwight Howard one year, if I'm not mistaken. Ben Sarah from Israel was drafted by Brooklyn. Then they went and got Donnie Wolf right after that. I love Danny Wolf from Michigan. He has a lot of Franz Wagner. Him going to a team like Brooklyn who has infinite opportunities. He's a 7-footer but plays like Franz Wagner. That's a guy who got all the opportunity to be a Rookie of the Year potentially. I'm excited for him. Celtics drafted Hugo Gonzalez. The Lam McNeely pick for the Suns was part of the big deal, we think, with the Pelicans. And then Yarek to close out the draft, first round. The Clippers drafted Yannick Niederhauser of the Penn State. That's their first ever first round pick. He's a high energy rebounder type of guy. It was an interesting selection just for the simple fact that the Clippers might have more point guard pressing needs. If Zubac is the priority, drafting a backup was kind of weird to me. But him being the first overall pick, first round pick for the Penn State Nittany Lions is always impressive, and I love to see history being made when it's been made. So that's awesome, even though he's a very raw player, rebounder, above the rim kind of lob threat. James Harden loves that. But I think, maybe they could have potentially tried to find a distributor like like Sears or a Proctor, something like that, would have been more appropriate because they need someone to take this point guard load off James Harden's hand. That's ultimately what proven to be the demise. In the second round, some interesting notes. The Lakers drafted a small forward from. Give me a second. I'll give you his name. The Lakers drafted Duthiero in the second round. He's a small forward, raw guy, 25% from three. I'm not sure where he's going to get minutes. I don't think he's better than Jordan Goodwin, but Jay Bilas seemed like to be a fan of him. I just think that the Lakers should have been going after bigs. Very disappointed in the NBA not drafting Grant Nelson. Not hearing his name be called was very screwed up and disappointing to me. This guy carried the tournament 2 years ago, and then this year he returns to help at Alabama, and he put on some weight to be more of a traditional center. But I think this guy, to me, I like this guy more than Cooper Flagg, to be honest with you. I just think he's such a talented player. He's going to Brooklyn with Wolf. Honestly, I hope they get rid of Claxton and or use Claxton correctly. If they're going to keep Claxton, use him correctly. I watched him at Alabama, and he's not playing nothing close to what he was, and it's just disappointing, and I hope Brooklyn doesn't do that to Wolf and Grant Nelson. Nemhard's brother ended up going to the Mavericks, which is very interesting for Kyrie Irving's sake. I think he has a chance to be special. The Milwaukee Bucks got point guard Sears. Proctor goes to the Cavs. Leads me to believe maybe they're concerned with Garland. Those were some of the more interesting second round picks for me. So, I hope this was informative. I'll try to do better next time. Utopians Global. Out.